Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you, and welcome to 2025. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about in today's video, as a major winter storm is going to work into the country later this week and into early next week. And this has the potential to bring big time snow, ice, and an Arctic air mass behind it through the lower 48. And unfortunately, folks, that's not going to be the end of it. More snow chances after that, potentially pretty far south into the deep south, the Gulf Coast states, as far west as Texas, and potentially as far east as the Carolinas could get in on some of that wintry action as we get deeper into January. And we're going to go ahead and break all of that down for you in today's video. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so and hit that bell for the latest notifications. That'll make sure you're the first to hear when I upload with the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance, which is going to be very helpful to you, trust me, as we go further into January. And of course, like the video and comment, let me know where you're watching from. I also do briefly want to say thank you. We've had a ton of growth on the channel over the past couple of days, so very appreciative to all of you that have joined us. And again, all of you just in general mean the world to me, whether you're new to the channel or you've been here from the beginning. I appreciate you swinging on by. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and start talking weather, because a lot to get through in today's video. All right, we'll start with satellite loop here, and currently not anything of big significance across the country. We do still have this leftover storm from New Year's Eve yesterday that kind of worked on through portions of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, bringing severe weather, heavy rain, and now bringing some snow on the backside. That's going to continue to kind of spin away over the next day or so as it kind of just meanders in this area and slowly pulls on up towards Canada. Now, after that, then we're going to get a little bit of a clipper system to kind of work through the country. Not a big deal out of that. But as we get later this week towards the weekend, that's when things go downhill significantly, as we're going to get a piece of energy to enter the Pacific Northwest, dive down through the country, and bring big time snow, big time ice, and a blast of Arctic air on the backside. And then that could set the stage for another southern piece of energy, this time maybe even further south, that could bring snow well into the south. And a lot of question marks on that one, but we are going to touch on it later on in the video. Now, radar imagery right now outside of the Northeast, it's pretty quiet. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the Northeast and get an idea of what we're seeing out there. Heavy rain along the I-95 corridor, really from Providence up through Maine on this Wednesday morning. But the further inland you go, the better chance you've got of seeing some snow here into upstate New York through the Adirondacks, and then into the mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, picking up on some good snow, at least inland here, and rain mixing in as well. This is kind of a very marginal setup temperature-wise, so you're going to need some elevation on your side to be getting that snowfall, and you can see some of that lake-enhanced precipitation as well here off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, helping to produce some higher precipitation totals. And that'll really be the theme through the next day or so, is northwest flow and lake effect snow really piling up in some of these areas, and then that clipper system in a couple of days as well. And out west, relatively quiet. We do have some snow showers into the Pacific Northwest, into the northern Rockies, and even some rain here at the coast near Eureka and up into the Seattle metro. So not completely quiet out there either. Definitely seeing active weather on both coasts, but the real, I guess, exciting stuff is still to come as we get into this week. Now, watches, warnings, advisories, really the big stuff is out east, and plenty of wind advisories. All these beige, or I guess brown boxes you see from North Georgia all the way up into Boston, Albany, back out towards State College in Harrisburg. These are wind advisories. This storm has really kicked up the wind, and I can tell you, at my place in upstate South Carolina yesterday, it was absolutely whipping around. And you could definitely see, why that would happen with that storm system working on through, combined with some afternoon heating, mixing up the atmosphere, and that turbulence kind of bringing some of those stronger winds down to the surface. Is one of the reasons many of you felt those strong winds yesterday. Today, it's going to be the same story into portions of the Northeast, although a little more just directly related to the pressure gradient with this storm. Now, another problem with the storm will be the winter weather that I mentioned. Winter storm warnings actually in effect here in the pink boxes from the mountains of West Virginia up here into northern New York State, northern Vermont, and then winter weather advisories and lake effect snow warnings as well into the interior Northeast for what this storm system is going to bring here through the next couple of days, and even some winter weather advisories into Michigan from the Upper Peninsula, even back down into the northern mitten there. Now, outside of that, folks, we zoom out and look at the lower 48 and all of the other watches, warnings, and advisories, and really not a whole lot going on. Some winter storm warnings into the mountains of Wyoming and northern Colorado, weather advisories, in the purple colors out west for a couple different areas, but nothing that you can't deal with this time of the year. All right, let's go ahead and start meteorology in minutes. And I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting segment today. This is kind of what we're seeing out there right now. Still a lot of that spin up into the northeast, as you would expect with that ongoing storm system. Generally, low pressure is created by this upper level of vorticity, and that's exactly what's happening. But overall speaking, there's no well-defined troughs or ridges on the map. There's little areas. We've got one trough back out here that is a little pocket of cold air. That is kind of swinging through behind our current storm, and then that spin in the northeast, like I mentioned, with a little embedded trough here that is helping to produce some of that precipitation. But generally speaking, the pattern is a little lackluster. As we go through the next couple of days, though, we will get a little piece of energy. Watch this enhanced vorticity coming down out of the northern Rockies. This is Wednesday evening, so overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. That's going to swing on through and will produce a little bit of snowfall through portions of the plains into the Ohio Valley. And then you see this little piece of energy that tries to spin up here off the southeast coast. That could help enhance a little bit of precipitation, I think, over the mid-Atlantic in the form of some snow and rain showers during your Friday afternoon. Now, the reason we're not going to get a big storm out of this is I want you to notice kind of the tilt of this. And we talk about this all the time on the channel. This starts as a very positively tilted trough, and by the time it gets to the southeast, specifically the Carolinas, it's still relatively positively tilted, a little bit of a neutral tilt developing, meaning it's trying to strengthen, and you can see that with the vorticity increasing, just too little too late, and it's just not going to result in a big winter storm for anybody, but definitely some snow showers out of that, and then that sets the stage for what will be a big winter storm with this piece of energy entering the west coast by overnight Friday and into Saturday. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the mesoscale models for the next little bit. And we'll start this afternoon. We've got rain into portions of the northeast, but snow breaking out into the interior from upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then that lake effect cranking up from Erie to Buffalo, and then down into West Virginia. Also seeing some of that lake effect snow into Michigan this afternoon and into the overnight tonight. A pretty feisty little storm here, 992 millibars. That's why the wind is kicking up, and that's why we're seeing a pretty big precipitation, falling here into portions of the interior northeast. Now, this will continue throughout the overnight tonight. We get into tomorrow morning. This storm system begins to pull away, still producing snow into those areas that we had those winter weather advisories, those winter storm warnings, and lake effect warnings. For that lake effect precipitation, even all the way back down into West Virginia, like I mentioned, getting in on some of that snow. But behind it, here's that little clipper system. Not a big one, but you notice Thursday morning some snow beginning to try to break out across portions of Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, and then kind of just slowly working through Illinois by Thursday evening, Indiana, Ohio, and then a big increase in that winter weather potential from West Virginia down to southwestern Virginia, the mountains of North Carolina. Likely to get some snow out of this one on Friday afternoon, at least northwest flow snow. So places, like Brevard and Hendersonville, not so much for you, but Beach Mountain and all these other ski resorts definitely going to pick up on the good stuff Friday afternoon. And you'll notice that tries to form into a little coastal system, just too little too late for any big snow. But I will add, we could get a quick little band that, sets up shop as this is pulling away. Somewhere over the mid-Atlantic during the evening of Friday, and that could produce a quick band of snow, maybe even in DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia. That's what the NAM model shows here. We'll wait and see. We'll figure out exactly who has that potential, but not a big deal either way. But what it does is set the stage for what will be a big deal, and you can see that beginning out west here by Saturday afternoon, and that segues us perfectly into that segment. Now, before we do actually segue, so I guess it wasn't really a perfect transition there, but let's talk about snowfall totals. This is now through Saturday afternoon. from the ongoing storm and the clipper on the way. The blend of models suggesting a good, 1 to 3 inch snow event through Iowa, northern Illinois, portions of Indiana, and then bigger snow totals into the west coast of Michigan, the upper peninsula of Michigan, as we're dealing with more of a lake effect event there that could help to wring out a little bit more precipitation. Now into the northeast, plenty of snow as well for you folks. Into the interior again, mountains of Vermont and New Hampshire are going to pick up on high snowfall totals, potentially a foot to a foot and a half on those highest peaks, not out of the question, but most of us in here probably going to be more about half a foot. But definitely give me your reports on how much snow you see. Always love reading those comments. Now further into the interior northeast, the Tug Hill and the usual trouble place is going to pick up on big snow here. Big snow coming into portions of Ontario as well. Through the next couple of days, and then Lake Erie getting some lake effect from Cleveland all the way up into Buffalo, and pretty decent totals down into West Virginia as well. I guess I will also briefly show you the Carolinas, or at least North Carolina snowfall map. I did forget to pull that up, so let's see here. So not a big deal, but definitely the northern mountains from Boone, kind of Beach Mountain, that area could pick up a good couple of inches, I think, with that clipper system as it swings on through during your Friday and overnight Friday. All right, now that doesn't really segue us perfectly, but it gets us into the next subject, which is this major winter storm on the way. And folks, I'll tell you, I think this one's going to be a doozy for a lot of us, and it's all going to be due to this piece of energy that enters the West Coast early this weekend. This is overnight Friday into Saturday, and this is the GFS, or the American model that I'm showing you currently. And notice what it does here. It kind of spins this up pretty quickly, and then ejects out of the Rockies, and you get a Colorado low to form kind of right into this diffluent zone of the trough. So you see this little area, this is not the center of the surface low, this is the center of the mid-level low. So what you're actually going to get is the surface low to form, probably, let me back it up just a little bit to kind of show you a little bit better. So right in here, you're likely going to get that surface low to develop into the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle. This is what we call a Colorado low, just because it's where it's originating. And just to give you a little bit of meteorology behind it, the reason it's happening here is a couple reasons. Well, we have this trough axis here, and I always talk about on the channel, the right-hand side where you kind of see it curving up. This is the diffluent side of a trough. Or that's where we have air separating above our heads, and that creates lift, and that lift over an area here of already a big temperature difference creates spin. And you're wondering, well, why is there a big temperature difference? Well, you got the Rocky Mountains here who are obviously cold, and then you have the Great Plains here who are generally not as cold. So you've got the cold air here, the warmer air here, and then you start to spin that around and you get that low pressure to develop. So very disgusting kind of crude drawing there, but you get the point. And that's what's going to happen here. Classic Colorado low develops and crosses right through the plains and eventually into the Ohio Valley by the time we get overnight Sunday into Monday, and really crosses right through that region all the way into early next week on the GFS model. And it's not alone, folks. The European model really doing the exact same thing here. It gets that upper level trough right over Colorado, has that same area of diffluence aloft, and likely the same surface low pressure formation zone into that area of the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle by overnight Saturday onto the European, and then kind of crosses the same region. Now, yesterday, the GFS was a little bit further north on the track. Overnight, yesterday, the European was a little bit further north on the track. The GFS was a little further south, and that created differences in the models. Still seeing slight differences, but they've come into a little bit of better alignment overnight, and have definitely trended a tad towards the European solution, which you'll see here. All right, so let's go ahead and start. This is the GFS model, and I'll give you kind of the breakdown of it. This is Saturday afternoon. You'll notice precipitation beginning to develop out into the plains. We've got snow, ice, and rain. Again, rain in the green, freezing rain in the pink, and sleet is in the purple color, and then blue there indicating snow falling Saturday afternoon. Precipitation beginning back towards Kansas and Oklahoma. As we move this ahead, though, through the overnight, this shield begins to expand, and we're waking up Sunday morning to an absolute mess in Missouri, Kansas. On this model, the GFS, it shows all rain in Arkansas to start off the event, all rain in Oklahoma, Louisiana, but an all-out winter storm raging from Kansas City to St. Louis, and we get further into the afternoon, and into the evening of Sunday, and this mess continues to work east on the model. Big breakout of snow through Illinois, Indiana, portions of Ohio, an icy mess from Cape Girardeau up to the southern St. Louis suburbs and into western Kentucky, and all of this just continues working east. Now, this is when it gets interesting on the models, and this is when kind of they begin to diverge a little bit in their agreement. This is overnight Sunday into Monday morning. Again, I'm showing you the American GFS, or the Global Forecasting System model, and you see a little bit of snow and ice breaking out into the triad of North Carolina, into the northern Piedmont, into southern Virginia. And this is where the models have been fighting it out a little bit. The GFS continues to show this idea that we could see wintry precipitation in this region. Other models keep it all north into Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So that'll be something that we kind of have to wait and see. It'll all depend how strong is that cold air in this region and the track of the low. Obviously, the further south it is, the more likely that cold air is going to make it into North Carolina and try to produce some winter precipitation. As for South Carolina, I've been very skeptical on any kind of snow or ice here. If there is, the best shot is going to be probably I-85 north into Greenville, Oconee, Pickens, Anderson, or maybe not even Anderson, but probably Spartanburg County, that area northbound. But even that, I think, is going to be a bit of a stretch. I would say the most favorable area in the Carolinas for winter weather, absolutely going to be up into the Triad and the northern mountains into the Boone area out of this storm system. Now, later on next week, we'll see what happens, another storm signal, and we'll talk about that one after this. We'll keep moving this ahead, though. Heavy snow event into the Ohio Valley, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, West Virginia, Virginia, and even northern North Carolina on this model. But again, like I said, we're going to have to figure that one out on the GFS. And the storm continues and then begins to lose a little bit of steam as it crosses portions of the Ohio Valley into West Virginia and getting into the mid-Atlantic. You'll notice the storm fizzling out a little bit, and you're thinking, all right, well, why is that? Is this just a fluke? Well, I don't think so. I think the model's onto something here. In fact, if we go back one map, let me show you this. This is our upper level map, and we're getting into all kinds of nitty-gritty meteorology today. But the reason this is happening is right here. In fact, let me change it to our wind. And we'll get to that same time frame. This is the American model, basically what I just showed you. So this is important for you folks in Philadelphia, DC, Baltimore, and the northern mid-Atlantic. And right into this time frame. Let's see here. This is Saturday. All right, here's our storm. So what's happening at this point, whenever we get to Sunday into Monday, you've got winds out of the northeast coming down like this, and then you got winds out of the southeast kind of like this. And what's happening is they're running into each other. So what you're getting in the upper levels is, if you could read that, let's see if I can draw that a little bit better. This is an area of convergence aloft. And what happens, we talked about divergence not long ago. Convergence is the opposite. That's the wind hitting each other above our head, and that creates a sinking motion, which leads to obviously a lack of rising motion, and that kind of suppresses precipitation. And that's kind of what's killing off the storm on the models here. You can see that very well on the GFS as I go back here. And notice how over the mid-Atlantic, we still get snow from DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, into Delaware, southern New Jersey, the Delmarva. But then things kind of fizzle out as it moves off the coastline. So that'll be something we watch and figure out. But let's go ahead and show you another model. Let's show you the European same storm system. It starts very similar. Saturday morning and afternoon, snow, ice, and rain breaking out into the plains. Really, honestly, folks, into some of the same areas. Seeing those impacts from Kansas City to kind of St. Louis getting the brunt of it, and it's going to be a very close cutoff. And this is what we need to figure out from this point. Is it going to be snow or ice in Kansas City? Is it going to be snow or ice in St. Louis? Is it going to be ice or rain in the Ozarks? And I just realized I drew a face there. So there we go. You got a little smiley face, or I don't know what kind of face that is, but there we go, smiley face. So that's going to be what we need to figure out with this storm system. The storm's going to happen. I can guarantee you that. Somebody's going to get clobbered with ice and snow in the Ohio Valley later this weekend and into early next week. And you see that as I move it ahead, a big winter storm, a swath of snow stretching from the Virginias all the way back into Kansas City, a battleground zone of ice stretching from southern Missouri into the southwestern Virginia area. That's going to happen. It's just a matter, is it a little further north? Is it a little further south? Does somebody get a foot of snow, or do they get 8 inches of snow? all the fun details you need to figure out in the 5-day time frame is what we're going to do. Now, here's the difference between the models. Again, like I mentioned, North Carolina, absolutely nothing is happening here on the European model. Maybe a quick start to some light snow flurries in the Danville area, but other than that, it's pretty lackluster. Another thing on the European model is check out this squall line, folks. This is a feisty area of severe weather potential, likely Sunday night into Monday through Dixie Alley. And I know the last thing you want to hear about is severe weather. Trust me, it's the last thing I want to talk about. But if it's a concern, it's something that we're going to need to dive into a little bit more in depth as we get closer to the storm system. Either way, though, you get the point. Big storm, big snowfall totals, big ice totals somewhere into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, and then the storm again fizzling after it exits the coast, and that could cause problems, at least for snow lovers in Philadelphia, DC, Baltimore. Still think we'll get snow in those regions, especially DC and Baltimore, maybe a little bit far south for big snow in Philadelphia, but I think at least, a light to moderate snow event in some of those areas, and then a moderate to heavy winter storm event back out kind of in, well, let me draw that a little bit better. I would say a moderate to heavy winter storm event right into this region that I have circled kind of on your map from Kansas City to St. Louis, over to Louisville and into West Virginia. So going to be a pretty good storm here. Let's take a look at some of the potential totals for snow and ice. And this is just the blend of models. This is our national blend of models. And there's different types of blends and ensembles. I'm going to show you this one, though, because I think it's doing a pretty good job. This is the mean. So this is the average. The key is on the right-hand side of your screen there. You should be able to see the numbers. I know they're small, but I'll kind of try to read them out for you. Right here, though, this is the best swath for big snow. From St. Louis to Cincinnati, Columbus, into West Virginia, a mean already of about half a foot of snow in this area. Lesser totals into DC showing a mean of about 4 inches, about 3 inches in Philadelphia, probably about 4 inches in Washington, D.C., and then lower totals as you go further south into Virginia. Let me zoom out a little bit too so everyone can kind of see their area. But you get the point, though. We've got a well-defined bullseye on the map here on the ensembles right here into the heart of the Ohio Valley. And this is where I think somebody is going to get half a foot upwards to a foot of snow out of this event. Would not be surprised at all to see a number like 12 inches. In fact, if I show you the kind of higher end, this is the mean. If I show you the 75th percentile, you kind of see that potential. This is now a mean of 8 inches or so from Springfield to St. Louis, back into Cincinnati, Columbus, and then into West Virginia. If I show you the 90th percentile, and granted this only has a 1 in 10 shot of happening, but you get the point. Big time snowfall potential, at least, with this storm. And if I bring it down to the 25th percentile, you'll notice the numbers come down pretty significantly. But I think the mean where it's at right now is probably a pretty all right forecast. The areas that are highlighted, I like those areas for big snow. Unfortunately, I also like the areas on the map for big ice potential. Now, I have this set on 90th percentile because for some reason the mean has basically nothing, and I can guarantee that's not going to happen. I think this is a more realistic ice map, and the big bullseye is going to be right into this region, I think, of southern Missouri into portions of Kentucky, and maybe even northern Tennessee here, where we could see anywhere from a quarter of an inch upwards to half an inch plus of ice. And like I said, and I've been repeating this over and over, we'll have to wait till we get closer to give you the exact ice totals and exact locations. But somebody here is going to have ice storm warnings. I can almost guarantee you out of this event, likely going to see that. And that will cause, obviously, big travel problems. It will cause power outage concerns. So on and so forth. Now, out west, or out east rather, I guess I should say, I'm skeptical again of this ice showing up into North Carolina. We will see. It's going to be something we just kind of have to figure out. But I'm leaning towards the European solution that had most of the snow and ice further north and less so down into the Carolinas. All right, the next problem is going to be the Arctic air. So this is Monday morning, the GFS model. Here's our storm system. You can see it pretty well with this big influx of warm air. We've got our warm sector. We've got that big pocket of cold above it that's producing the winter weather. Either way, whether you see snow or not, it's going to get cold after the storm. Let me move this into Tuesday morning low temperatures. So this is overnight Monday into Tuesday. Absolutely frigid air into the plains. We're talking getting below zero, getting right around zero through Missouri, Illinois, portions of Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska. And then Tuesday afternoon, no walk in the park either. We're struggling to get out of the 30s and the 40s in the Mid-South. We're not breaking freezing through the Ohio Valley. The cold air is absolutely going to settle in. And then we get into Wednesday morning. And you can see just this big block of absolutely frigid Arctic air continuing to work down south towards the lower 48. And what this is going to do, folks, is set up the stage for a potential another winter storm in that kind of January 8th through, we'll say, 13th timeframe. And I know that's a big spread. And trust me, I've got travel plans in that time period. So I would love to know just as much as you exactly who and where is going to see winter weather in this time frame. But it gets difficult. All right, so let's go ahead and show you the latest American model. Again, this is back to our vorticity map. This is this coming Monday. Here's the big storm we just talked about. There's all the energy associated with it. But look at what's happening behind it. More energy out west into the Pacific. And if I move this ahead into time on our American model, notice how this links up and we get a bit of a Baja low. And by the time we're getting up Wednesday, January 8th, we've got a big piece of southern energy. And this is what we've been lacking all winter long so far. Granted, winter's still in its infancy, but so far, this is what we've been missing for the potential of southern snow. And what this could do is slide east towards the Carolinas, the Mid-South, Texas, and produce the potential of a southern winter storm. Now, I said the potential. That does not mean it's going to happen. The latest American model from this morning does that. It moves this east, even hooks it up with another piece of energy from the north. And this is a perfect look for southern snow. You got this southern branch of energy, that's bringing the moisture, and look at what dives out of the south, a northern branch of energy, that brings the cold air. These two link up, and you get a big snowstorm, or at least a notable snowstorm, and then a big blast of Arctic air after it. And this is now within 10 days, folks. This is not anymore 350 hours out or whatever. This is getting not close per se, but closer and within the realm of possibilities on the model. So now, what about the European? It's great that the GFS shows it. Does the European also show it? Similar story. We'll start here Monday afternoon. Here's the big storm this weekend and early next week we talked about, and you do see some of that energy out west kind of working southward. The difference on the European model is it happens, here we go, this is the morning of the 8th, but it's what happens after the fact. It doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of gets stuck down there as a Baja low, just sits out over Baja, California, and then our northern energy comes. Here's one shot of northern energy. Here's another shot of northern energy. But they just don't really link up with the southern piece, and therefore you don't get a big storm on the model. But the pieces are on the table. It's just a matter of how they play out, what links up, what doesn't link up. Really is like a game of chess. I'm going to skip that map. That one's not so important. All right, so let's show you what this looks like on the surface with these models. This is the latest American model. Here's the storm we just talked about. We'll kind of skip through that. Here comes the energy. You can see some snow in the Rockies breaking out by Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, so about a week from now. And then getting down into Texas, notice this little kind of actually, I just realized we were on the 0Z. Let me run this to the 6Z. Sorry about that. I'll give you the latest model. Same story, though. It's going to show the same thing, basically. All right, yeah, here we go. So we get into Monday, Tuesday. Here's that energy diving down through the Rockies. We've got winter storm breaking out into Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, down into the Four Corners, and eventually getting into Texas. And here we go. It seems like year after year after year, we've got a Texas winter storm now within a week. This is this coming Wednesday morning. We've got snow in Dallas, Fort Worth, back down getting closer towards the Austin area and San Antonio. We've got some ice, snow, and rain kind of fighting it out on this model. And then this cranks up into a beautiful Gulf Coast low pressure, major winter storm for Texas. We've got winter weather into northern Louisiana, Arkansas. We've got a winter storm through Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and then into the Carolinas by the overnight of the 9th into the 10th. And then it moves on out of here. And something I haven't talked a lot about because I've been getting caught up on all the southern snow and at least the potential of it. My folks in the Northeast, I have gotten some comments, and trust me, I read them, saying, well, what about us? You haven't been talking about us. Well, unfortunately, for you folks, it's almost one of those patterns. It's too cold to snow. I'm not saying it's not going to snow. In fact, we're getting snow today in portions of the Northeast, but Boston, into New York City, up into Maine, this pattern is not very favorable for you. Now, the first storm, great for the Mid-Atlantic and Southern Northeast. The second storm, potentially great for the Southeast. And there is still the potential that this kind of energy does ride up the coast. Some of the models have been hinting at that in kind of the 10-plus day range. But from now through the next 7 or so days, it's just looking cold in the Northeast, at least New York City northbound out of this pattern. And yeah, we could see maybe a little clipper system or something like that. But really the biggest winter storm potentially, or at least the potential for the big winter storms, funnily enough, is actually further south. It kind of goes back to that old saying, too cold to snow. It's not, literally too cold to snow. It's really more too dry to snow is the problem we're running into up there. But definitely a great look on the GFS model here. Classic southern slider, classic southern winter storm look there now within 10 days on the latest model. What about the European? Well, here's the big storm we just talked about. That's the one that brings snow to Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C., and into Virginia, and then obviously all the snow into the Ohio Valley we mentioned. The European, you do see that breakout of precipitation, including snow back down towards Texas during this coming Wednesday. Notice how that upticks, but then it's suppression depression, as we say, just meaning it doesn't really form, the energy isn't linking up, and it's not doing what you need it to do. But what you do have is that northern energy. You see this low pressure up here, and this is what could potentially bring snow further into the Northeast if you get a scenario like this, and it kind of doesn't link up in the south. You see some of that snow breaking out over Minnesota into the Ohio Valley, a little snow system in about 10 days or so. And then that tries to, again, link up in the south with that big shot of cold air, just doesn't quite get there. All right, let's talk about the chances of the second winter storm happening and if it's something that we even have a shot of or if it's just the GFS being crazy. Well, I'll tell you, we do definitely have a shot. Here's the European ensemble chance of at least an inch of snow falling, and you can see that energy in the Rockies by next Monday, diving south into the Four Corners, and a pretty good signal for snow well south into Texas by next Monday and Tuesday on the European ensemble, running a 20 to 30% chance of accumulating snow already, and that could definitely go up, could also go down, but definitely a solid signal. Then this gets into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas by the 10th of January here, and then kind of slides on out of here. So there's a signal for sure on the European ensembles, even if the operational run isn't showing it. And like I said, the pieces are on the table, just a matter of do they link up. The GFS ensemble, also a signal. Here's that signal down into Texas, and then kind of getting into the mid-Atlantic. And then that northern stream energy kind of dominating, it looks like a little bit here closer to the 11th and the 10th, and bringing snowfall chances with it. And then the GFS a little bit more favorable to the Northeast on this run. You can see chances increasing really through the middle of the month. I think, after this first storm onward, we're going to have chances of winter weather just about everywhere in the East outside of maybe Miami. But it's just a matter of, again, figuring out who gets it. And I think the South definitely has a good shot. Obviously, the first storm we talked about, where that's going to impact the second storm signal. I really do like Texas up through the Carolinas for at least the potential. Now, like I said, does that mean major winter weather? Not necessarily, but the signal is there, the ingredients are there, the pieces are there. Just do they line up? Now, one thing I can guarantee you, it's going to get cold, and it's going to get really cold here after this first storm system. We talked about that big Arctic shot behind it, and then potentially the second storm system, if it happens, could bring another shot of Arctic air. And this is, showing you the GFS ensembles. It just doesn't change, folks. It's just cold, cold, cold all the way through the middle of the month. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you on this Wednesday and on this first day of 2025. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely do so. Like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Alrighty, stay safe, have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.